So on our site we may have models of buildings created with the Autodesk Revit software, and equally we need to make sure that is coordinated with the site that we've produced in Autodesk Map and Civil. So if I come into this model, which is fairly typical, and draw a spot coordinate, I'll find that when I put a spot coordinate on it, it's nonsense. And that's mainly because when you start modelling in Revit, not a lot of people give thought to the coordination at the beginning, and it's not really essential that you have to either. You can see it's not coordinated to the true north. So what I'm going to do is actually create a site coordination model, and I'm actually going to do that by creating it just using the architectural template that comes with Revit. There's a site view in here, which simply means that it can see everything but in the vertical space. If I go to the visual graphics screen, which is VG, keyboard shortcut, I can turn off this properties base point, and I'm just left with this triangle, which is the survey point. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring in that map that I just created in Map and Civil 3D, and I'm going to import my units, make sure they're set to meter because it's a meters, and I'm going to use center to center as the option, which surprises people because a lot of people expect you to use origin. Revit's slightly different. The basic principle is think about moving the world underneath the model, not moving the model to the world. And how that works is if I now acquire these coordinates, the model is going to stay exactly where it is, but as I acquire the coordinates, that triangle is going to move to what is the relative origin point. So the map is stayed embedded in the center of the file. It's the origin that's moved. In other words, the world has moved under the model, not the other way around. Now if I come in, I can see my building pads which are mapped out in Map 3D, and I can link in my building models. I do this just under a standard linking arrangement using the manual insertion point, which puts it on the cursor. I'll just take a few seconds now using my modification tools to accurately position that in place, and what I can do next is use my point cloud tool to reference in a point cloud that I've got, and because that point cloud is geo-referenced, when I use shared coordinates, which is the first time we use that shared coordinate system, you'll see that that point cloud lands in the right place, proving that our coordination is now starting to take effect. So one of the things I'm going to do here is I need to transmit that coordinate system from this model into the individual building models. So I'm going to click on the model, and in the instance properties here I get this option to publish the shared coordinate system from this site coordination model into the actual linked file. A quite unique ability within the Revit software. So now, just to prove that that's worked, if I go into the building information modeling file, remembering to save the coordinate system as I exit this file, and I'll save it as a site coordination model. If I go into my actual building file, the one that we just went into just a moment ago, and I'll take a look at that coordinate, and we'll notice that coordinate is now correct, and also that my model is now orientated correctly to the true north, and I can switch it back to Project North. So it's very simple to coordinate a shared coordinate system within the Revit software. The key is really creating that site coordination model. You can set elevation in a couple of ways. You could publish the coordinate in the actually respective models, or in here, if I go in and reference in my topographical surface into my site coordination model, the one that we produce in Civil 3D, and create a new topo surface within Revit using the import tools. The nice thing about Civil 3D is it layers everything quite clearly for us, and I can go and just grab those minor and major contours that I had before. And basically what Revit will do now is it will project our surface over the top of that contour, and you can see now that that is now working properly. If I come back into the actually normal building model and go to, say, the datum for the ground floor, which is in the wrong place at the moment, if I go to my coordinates tool here and publish my coordinates, I can set my level in the right place, which I found using Civil 3D earlier on. If I come back to my site coordination model, it is now in the right place. One of the advantages of doing this, if I just use something like a reference plane in my Revit tool, I can actually go ahead and draw something like a section through the model, thus being able to see my building models in the Revit platform with respect in orientation with my actual site surface. So now we need to coordinate in other models as well. So where we might get a model that comes from somebody else who hasn't coordinated, the easiest way to do that is frankly to open up their model, referencing your model which is properly coordinated, and move your model into the correct space, perhaps using say, the grid lines as the datum. So if you are in the design lead role and the people sending you the models haven't coordinated it, you could use this method where you link in your model over the top of theirs and just acquire the coordinate system from your model, which will basically coordinate both the actual coordinates and the north orientation. So hopefully what this video demonstrates is that site coordination is not quite as difficult as it's maybe made out to be sometimes. I get a lot of people coming up with all sorts of weird and wonderful scenarios for coordination, unclipping coordinate systems, having to rotate Project North manually and all these sorts of things, and really providing you use this site coordination method that I've shown you in here, none of that is actually required. One of the basic principles of this is that providing you create the site coordination model, link in your map, acquire the coordinates, you're effectively working with that 20-mile limitation that Autodesk Revit has. Revit can't have anything that's further than 20 miles away from the center of the Revit file, but the survey point can be moved outside of that zone. So in other words, move the world underneath the model, not like you do in AutoCAD when you bring everything in by a common origin point. Once you've done that, you can establish that shared coordinate system between the models. Other things to note here is you should never move a model live in the file. In other words, you shouldn't ever go into a file and try and use the move command on a model to move its origin position. The model will literally pull itself to pieces and you will get lots and lots of error messages. Further to that, another advantage of using a site coordination model is it makes an excellent way of compartmentalizing your information. You can actually concentrate on what you're doing on your building designs within the individual files and link all of your models into the site coordination model with the topography and infrastructure if necessary, and that way it will not load down your actual models which you're using to design. I hope this video has been useful. Any questions, please do shout.